The House will be in order. The prayer will be offered by Chaplain Gibbon.
Would you pray with me? God of grace and peace, in your mercy, speak into our hearts this day with words of both challenge and encouragement, that we would be neither paralyzed by our pride nor stymied by our despair. For you have commanded us to live in harmony with one another. This is a hard directive to follow. In our hubris, we're inclined to do what is wise in our own sight, failing to appreciate the value of the opposing voice. But in our hopelessness, we look for ways to undermine our adversaries, repaying their evil with our own. Only with your intervention can we choose to do what honors all people. Only by yielding to your judgment can we give up our desire for vengeance. Break into our inclinations for discord and teach us how to live in harmony. Teach us patience and humility, that even here we could find ways toward a shared purpose, a purpose established in the peace to be found only in you. In the unity of your name we pray. Amen.
The chair has examined the journal of the last day's proceedings and announces the House the approval thereof. Pursuant to Clause 1 of Rule 1, the journal stands approved. Pledge of Allegiance will be led by the gentleman from Pennsylvania, Mr. Joyce.
Would you please stand and join the pledge with me? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The chair will entertain up to 15 requests for 1-minute speeches on each side of the aisle. Purposes, the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to address the House and ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, today I proudly rise to honor former Penn State football player and academic All-Big Ten honoree Jonathan Nabavi as he takes his next steps in his professional career. As the son of Rosemary Nabavi and Abby Nabavi, Jonathan spent his childhood growing up in beautiful State College, Pennsylvania, watching Penn State football games and learning the game. He didn't have to travel too far as he went on to play for the Nittany Lions at Beaver Stadium and graduated from Penn State in 2004. Then he attended the George Washington University Law School, where he earned his degree and later developed a career here on the Capitol Hill. Jonathan's passion for one of Americans' most popular sports carried into his professional life, supporting our largest sport, football, in the NFL. As Jonathan takes the next steps in his career, I wish him, his wife Catherine, their two beautiful daughters, Layla and Eloise, the best of luck in the next chapter of his incredible career. We are Penn State. Thank you, and I yield.
Yields back. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Texas seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask for unanimous consent to address the House and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise today because there are children in Texas going hungry, and Governor Greg Abbott just made it worse. This week, he vetoed $60 million in state spending for a summer food program that would have helped feed children while school was out. With that one decision, he turned his back on our most vulnerable kids and walked away from $450 million in federal funding that could have helped struggling families across Texas. Texas has the second highest rate of food insecurity in the nation. Number 2, 1 in 4 children in our state face hunger. That's 25% of our children. Let's be clear. How can you claim to be pro-life and then just let children starve? To paraphrase Matthew, quote, "For I was hungry and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty and you gave me something to drink." Our job is simple. Take care of our kids, feed the hungry, and lift up the families who need us most. I will never stop fighting for them,
expired.
And I will always put people over politics.
Gentlelady's time's expired.
Thank you. I
For
yield
what
back.
purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee seek recognition?
consent to address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today on behalf of Tennesseans that I represent who overwhelmingly support President Trump's one big, beautiful bill. The bill delivers for the American people in many ways, not the least of which is border security. Under the last administration, 1,504 Iranians were caught crossing the border illegally. Nearly half of them were released into the country. We still don't know how many of them were on the terror watch list. Think about that. Last month, 0 illegal immigrants were released into the U.S. compared to 62,000 a year ago in May. Indeed, President Trump secured the border in record time, a master class in leadership, without a blank check from Congress. Now it is on the Senate to pass the one big, beautiful bill and give the president the resources he needs to keep the border secure. The bill will fund more boots on the ground, more deportations, and the critical border wall. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I yield back.
Gentleman's time's expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute, revise and extend my remarks as necessary.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Today I honor the life, the legacy of Mike Rotkin. Mike was a tireless public servant, a principled activist, and a beloved educator in Santa Cruz. As a professor at UCSC, he inspired generations of students to give back to their communities. As a leader, he served at 5 terms as mayor and nearly 25 years on the city council, more than anyone in the history of Santa Cruz. But Mike's impact cannot be measured in titles nor terms. He stood on picket lines, marched for civil rights, fought to save libraries, protected our coastline, and never stopped showing up for our neighbors. And he did it all with civility and hard work, a competitor, but always compassionate and considerate. If you disagreed with him, he was never confrontational. Instead, he took the high road, worked hard, and always found common ground. I was proud to have not just his political support, but I was also so pleased that I could call Mike a personal friend. So although we in the Santa Cruz community are moved by his loss, I stand here today, just as we stand together in Santa Cruz, inspired to serve by his legacy and the spirit of Mike Rotkin. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Pennsylvania seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I request unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute and revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in strong support of the EMS Counts Act, a bipartisan, common-sense solution to a critical and longstanding oversight in how we value our first responders. Prior to serving in Congress, I spent decades as a volunteer firefighter and an EMT, and recognized and value the commitment these individuals have to their communities. Currently, the Bureau of Labor Statistics fails to count firefighter EMTs and firefighter paramedics as part of the EMS workforce, which skews the data, masks staffing shortages, and complicates funding decisions and hinders emergency preparedness. Correcting outdated classifications is important because without an accurate count on the number of EMTs, paramedics, and other emergency service providers, it creates a challenge to adequately meet the health and safety needs of our communities. Accurate workforce data is not just numbers, it's the foundation for equitable funding, targeted training, disaster responsiveness, and enhanced workplace safety. It empowers us to stand behind the men and women who respond to more than 22 million emergencies each year. Mr. Speaker, passing the EMS Counts Act is a decisive step towards recognizing and strengthening this indispensable part of our public safety infrastructure. I urge my colleagues to join me in support.
Gentleman's time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair recognizes the gentleman from North Carolina. For what purpose do you seek recognition?
Mr. Chair, Mr. Speaker, I ask for unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to rise and extend.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to highlight the voices of our local farmers. During a tour of the Brown family farms and produce, we met with fourth-generation farmer Patrick Brown, former United States Representative Eva Clayton, a group of local farmers, agriculture leaders, and advocates to discuss the future of farming in eastern North Carolina. Brown Family Farms was established in 1865 and is a family-run operation rooted in rich tradition and innovation. During the tour, we discussed the challenges farmers are facing and the importance of passing a farm bill. Our farmers deserve to be heard. Their voices must guide us to meet the needs of the American people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purposes, gentleman from California seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Nuclear power is almost an untapped source from what it could be in this country. It's just under 20% of the power grid, yet when we're talking about trying to eliminate CO2 to get our number down from 0.04% of CO2, nuclear power presents one of the best ways we can accomplish that and also have base load power that you can rely on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, instead of waiting for the sun to come up or for the wind to blow. It indeed is something that needs to be embraced much more, but we all have other things to do too, because in just a couple of years, imported uranium from Russia is going to be cut off. Therefore, 20% of our uranium stocks are going to go down with it no longer being imported from Russia. What's that mean for us? We need to get to mining in this country again. We need to produce it here in the USA. We need to get cracking on making uranium usable and part of our power grid, because power is going to increase in its demand with data centers and so much more things, or California trying to electrify everything. We're going to need a heck of a lot more power, and nuclear power is going to be a very important component for base load, reliable power to do so. I yield back.
Does the gentlelady from Michigan seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
I want to recognize Caribbean American Heritage Month, celebrating the culture, contribution, and the history of the Caribbean Americans throughout the Michigan's 12th Congressional District and across the country. Caribbean American Heritage Month first was recognized in 2005, was established after years of global efforts to uplift our Caribbean American neighbors. Their vibrant culture and contributions to our country and throughout the 12th Congressional District has uplifted many of our communities. The Caribbean communities in Northwest Detroit, as well as in the city of Inkster and throughout Western Wayne and Oakland County, have created powerful legacies through food, beauty businesses, fresh markets, nonprofits working to care for our families and new immigrants. Caribbean Community Services in my district, a nonprofit organization, has done an outstanding job in uplifting Caribbean history. Through their engaging events, Mr. Speaker, they have celebrated the rich culture heritage of the Caribbean and the significant impact on our communities. Please join me in ensuring that Caribbean American neighbors throughout our country are recognized as we celebrate this month.
Gentleman yields back. For what purposes, gentleman from Georgia seek recognition?
I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute to revise and extend my remarks.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize an outstanding team from Savannah, Georgia, the dedicated staff of WTOC-TV, and congratulate them on their recent Emmy Award win at the 2025 Southeast Emmy Awards. This remarkable team was honored with the award for Best Morning Newscast in a Smaller Market, recognizing their exceptional coverage of Savannah's 200th St. Patrick's Day celebration, a signature event in the city's history and culture. WTOC-TV represents the very best in local journalism, combining heart, hustle, and hometown pride. Covering Savannah St. Patrick Day is no small task. It's an all-hands-on-deck event that calls for every morning, late night, and unwavering dedication. Everyone involved in that broadcast played a vital role, from producers and anchors to editors, photographers, and technical staff. It was truly a team effort, and it showed. These individuals displayed incredible skill in their respective professions, but also in communication and collaboration with each other. WTOC's achievement stands as a shining example of professionalism, collaboration, and a deep commitment to fostering a well-informed community. It is an honor to recognize and congratulate this team today. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purposes, representative from Delaware seek recognition?
To address the House for 1 minute and to revise and extend my remarks as necessary.
Without objection, representative from Delaware is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last week, I had the privilege of visiting the Wilmington Police Athletic League, a place where community and opportunity are shaping the next generation of Delawareans. For 23 years, the Wilmington PAL has served as a safe haven for young people in Wilmington and Newcastle County, supporting more than 42,000 youth with after-school programming, summer enrichment, and early childhood education. Their mission, building brighter futures, engaging with public safety, and empowering families, is more than a slogan. It's a daily practice. Through their work, the Wilmington PAL supports children from infancy through high school, ensuring every child they serve has the tools to grow, thrive, and contribute to our state of neighbors. Recently, they expanded their work to support seniors in Delaware. Organizations like the Wilmington PAL remind us that public safety and public opportunity go hand in hand. I'm proud to stand with them, and I'll keep working with my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to expand the resources that make their mission possible. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back the balance of my time.
Representative yields back. For what purposes, gentlemen from Guam seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute.
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today with great honor to recognize War Survivor Remembrance Day. From 1941 to 1944, Imperial Japanese soldiers occupied Guam and forced our ancestors through hardship and unspeakable violence that has left scars long after the war. In the face of darkness, it was our people's quiet resistance and sense of community that enabled us to survive. To our greatest generation, thank you for preserving and rebuilding our community on the foundation of family and cultural virtues. Words will never fully capture the severity or intensity of your experience, but know our gratitude is immense. As we honor this day, let us not dwell on the horrors of war, but rather celebrate the unwavering spirit and strength of the generation that carried our people through a truly difficult time. May this inspire future generations to do the same in the face of unspeakable hardship. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlelady from Massachusetts seek recognition?
1 minute.
Without objection, the gentlelady is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to recognize the traumatic loss of life around the world and to reaffirm a simple truth. Our destinies are tied. Too often in moments of crisis, we are bombarded with abstract numbers and detached headlines describing casualties and missiles, but behind every number is a name, and behind every headline is a story of a little girl whispering prayers beneath her blanket, hoping the night sky stays quiet. A story of a father digging through rubble, his hands bloody, desperately searching for his wife and child. Nations are not just governments and regimes. They are people. They are mothers, sons, teachers, taxi drivers, people whose story echo our own because they are us. No matter where someone is born or what language they speak, our grief over losing a loved one is the same. We are bound together by that shared humanity, so we must be relentless in our commitment to peace. Peace rooted in diplomacy, peace that's sustained with dialogue, and peace that insists, without exception, that every single life matters. From Boston to the Middle East, our destinies are tied, and everyone deserves to live free from fear and know peace. Thank you.
Gentlelady's time's expired. For what purpose does the gentleman from California seek recognition?
Ask unanimous consent to address the House. Unanimous consent to address the House for 1 minute. And
Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On May 22nd, House Republicans passed their budget bill, which would make major cuts to the Pell Grant program in order to finance tax breaks for the ultra-wealthy. This would be one of the largest transfers of multi-generational wealth in the history of the country. Pell Grants are awarded to help low-income students afford the cost of higher education so that they can focus on their coursework. Republican changes would force students with disabilities, students with jobs, and primary caregivers to increase their course load to risk losing their Pell Grant awards. Over 5,000 students in the district I represent, Northern California, receive Pell Grants. A study by the Center of Economic Policy Research found that average income in a community rises by 2.5% for every 1% increase in Pell Grants. We should focus on making education more accessible and doubling the maximum Pell Grant, not cutting off support for students who need it the most for people who need support the least. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purposes does the representative from Puerto Rico seek recognition? Without objection, the gentleman is recognized for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor the life of Ramon Luis Rivera on his remarkable 96th birthday. Ramon Luis was the transformative mayor of Bayamón, Puerto Rico from 1976 to 2000. A member of my opposition party, he won the hearts of voters across party lines as he led his city for nearly 3 decades. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor. Now I will switch to Spanish very briefly so that my constituents, for ease of my constituents. Hoy me paro aquí para honrar la vida de Ramón Luis Rivera Padre en su cumpleaños número 96. Ramón Luis Rivera fue el alcalde transformador de Bayamón, Puerto Rico, desde 1976 al 2000. Un miembro del partido de oposición al mío, se ganó el corazón de electores y de sus constituyentes más allá de líneas partidistas mientras conducía los destinos de su ciudad por alrededor de 3 décadas. Felicidades, señor alcalde. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. For what purpose does the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Moore, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant of House Resolution 530, I call up H.R. 875 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
Clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 19, H.R. 875, a bill to amend the Immigration and Nationality Act to provide that aliens who have been convicted of or who have committed an offense for driving while intoxicated or impaired are inadmissible and deportable.
Pursuant to House Resolution 530, the amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on the Judiciary, printed in the bill, is adopted, and the bill as amended is considered read. The bill as amended shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on the Judiciary or their respective designees. The gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Moore, and the gentleman from Maryland, Mr. Raskin, each will control 30 minutes. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Alabama, Mr. Moore.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and to insert extraneous material on H.R. 875.
Without objection, so ordered.
I yield myself as much time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized for as much time as he may consume.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Today we consider a simple, common sense bill that says if you're a guest in our country and you drive drunk, you should in fact be deported. Now, to the average American, passing this bill is a no-brainer. Even in a polarized time, Democrats should be able to join Republicans and unanimously support such reasonable legislation. After all, deporting dangerous criminals is a rational, normal, and coherent step that this House should take. Unfortunately, I am skeptical that we will see much agreement from my Democrat colleagues on this bill. Regardless, I am thankful the House is considering H.R. 875, the Jeremy and Angel C. and Sergeant Brendan Mendoza Protect Our Communities from DUIs Act, a bill that I introduced last Congress and again this Congress. Every 45 minutes, that is how often someone in the United States dies in a crash involving an alcohol-impaired driver. In 2022 alone, there were 13,524 alcohol-impaired driving fatalities. In 2020, drunk driving crashes led to nearly 400,000 injuries. Those crashes do not discriminate, Mr. Speaker. The victim could be me, it could be you, it could be any one of our families or in our communities. This issue hits home, it hits close for me. There was a newlywed couple from my hometown of Enterprise, Alabama, named Angel and Jeremy C. I knew this couple personally, knew their family, played ball with their dad. Angel and Jeremy were riding a motorcycle together when out of nowhere, an illegal alien under the influence of alcohol collided into the newlyweds with his pickup. Their lives were cut short by this senseless act. Tragedies like this are not uncommon across this country. In December of 2023, an illegal alien killed a 46-year-old woman and her 16-year-old son in Bloomfield, Colorado, when he drove his truck up to 100 miles an hour and ran into the victim's vehicle, causing it to then crash into a tree. Despite having five previous DUI convictions, a Boulder, Colorado county judge sentenced this illegal alien to probation, community service, and released him on December 8th of 2023. In relation to those 2 convictions, just 4 days before the drunk driver crashed and killed the mother and her son. Or consider the case in Florida, where just earlier this year, an illegal alien from Mexico was arrested for his third DUI after he hit and killed a kindergartner. In Texas, in December of 2024, an illegal alien killed a 7-year-old girl after he drove drunk, crashed into the car that was being driven by the girl's mother. Just months earlier, under the Biden-Harris administration, ICE had lifted the detainer, which had previously been lodged against this illegal alien after he was arrested for assaulting a family member in June of 2024. H.R. 875 makes common sense changes to immigration laws to make an alien who is convicted or who admits driving under the influence inadmissible. It also makes an alien convicted of doing so removable. In fact, 59 Democrats voted in favor of this legislation when I brought it to the House floor last February. If you're a guest in our country and you drive drunk, you should be removed from this country, period. Drunk drivers are involved in 31% of all crash deaths in this country. On average, drunk driving killed roughly 11,000 people in the United States every year between 2012 and 2022. Yet current immigration law does not make aliens inadmissible or removable if they drive drunk and recklessly break our laws. My colleagues across the aisle will undoubtedly argue that this bill is unnecessary because current law already makes DUI inadmissible and a deportable offense. But if that's the case, then why would they oppose this bill? Even more, their claim that this bill is redundant could not be further from the truth. Although some aliens who commit DUIs, such as those who kill or injure innocent victims, may be found inadmissible and they may be removable, but a vast majority of the aliens with DUI convictions escape immigration consequences. In fact, on its website just last year, the Biden-Harris administration's U.S. Customs and Border Protection clearly stated, a single driving under the influence DUI conviction is not grounds to deny entry into the United States. Moreover, the Board of Immigration and Appeals has held that a simple DUI offense is not a crime involving moral turpitude, and that would make an alien removable from the United States. Yet, as we know, any drunk driver event can lead to death with the consequences that are far from what they call simple. And we shouldn't have to wait for repeat drunk drivers to injure someone or kill before they are deported. That is why H.R. 875 is so imperative. It creates safer streets, safer communities for all of us. And I urge my colleagues to support this bill, and I'll reserve the balance of my time.
Gentleman from Alabama reserves. What purpose, gentleman from Maryland? Gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll yield myself such time as it may consume. Greetings, Mr. Moore. With this strained legislation, we are bumping into two major social problems: deadly drunk driving on our roads and a broken immigration system. But alas, we're not doing anything to solve either problem. The bill pretends to do something about both of them, but it really does little or nothing about either of them. We lose 11,000 people a year to drunk driving crashes. More than 1 million people are arrested on DUI charges every year, Mr. Speaker. I lost a beloved cousin of mine in Florida who was in the prime of her life just after graduating from college when she was killed by a drunk driver while she was riding a bicycle on the roads of Florida. So I take this issue very seriously of drunk driving, and I've worked on it fastidiously for a long time in my career. There's a lot we could do in Congress to improve safety on the streets, including imposing a nationwide mandatory ignition interlock device on the cars of all convicted drunk drivers. We did that in my state of Maryland after fighting the liquor lobby for a long time, but we finally got that done. We could also pass my bill, the Sarah Debink Langenkamp Active Transportation Safety Act, which would support state and local government efforts to build safer transportation networks for bicyclists and for pedestrians. Unfortunately, this bill doesn't do anything like that. Indeed, it's hard to see how it will reduce drunk driving at all. It's obviously not a serious attempt to address the social problem of drunk driving. It does not increase criminal penalties for DUI anywhere in the country, and it does nothing to promote public education about the dangers of drunk driving. It will sadly improve nothing on the roads. As an immigration law, it does nothing to make it more difficult for undocumented people to enter our country unlawfully, nor does it make it easier for people to acquire the documents to enter the country legally. It is a purely punitive measure, and it's both radically under-inclusive and radically overbroad. It only targets the very tiny fraction of all DUI violations in the country committed by non-citizens and does nothing to crack down on drunk driving by citizens who are responsible for the vast majority of it. Immigrants who drive drunk are already covered by the criminal law, and the undocumented ones are already categorically deportable. They don't need to drive drunk to be deported. They are deportable now because they are not in the country lawfully. Additionally, because of the breadth of DUI statutes around the country, this legislation will render deportable people who never drove drunk at all without any opportunity for judicial discretion or waiver. Under current immigration law, undocumented people are already both inadmissible and deportable. Furthermore, conviction for serious DUIs already render even lawful permanent residents who've been in the country for decades potentially deportable and inadmissible in the first instance. Under the Immigration and Nationality Act, any non-citizen who is convicted of or who admits to a crime involving moral turpitude, a so-called CIMT, is generally inadmissible to the country. Likewise, any non-citizen who's convicted of a crime involving moral turpitude, where a sentence of 1 year or longer may be imposed, is deportable from the country. So serious DUI offenses are already deportable crimes under current law. The following DUI offenses are all considered crimes involving moral turpitude. Any DUI where the maximum possible penalty is a year or more and where there is serious bodily harm, hit and runs, any aggravated DUI, and any DUI involving driving with knowledge of having an invalid, suspended, or revoked license. But this bill goes far beyond even this very stringent current law by making permanent resident green card holders deportable for a single infraction, even where no one is hurt and no property is damaged. This will lead to some very harsh results. In Arizona, sleeping in your car while drunk without even starting the car can get you convicted of a misdemeanor DUI. And under this bill, a single conviction for even that offense would make a 20-year permanent resident of America, a green card holder, deportable from the country. That person is rightfully deportable if they engage in an act of drunk driving that hurts someone or kills someone, but that's the law today. Or if they drive drunk without a license today. And an undocumented alien is, of course, deportable in all cases. So you don't need a statute to deport them for falling asleep drunk in their car. Today, there are nearly 13 million green card holders, permanent residents in the United States. These are people who have followed all the rules. We're not talking about the undocumented people who are here unlawfully. They're already taken care of. But there are 13 million green card holders in the United States, with 9 million eligible to become citizens now. Categorically deporting individuals who are convicted for any DUI offense without any regard for the severity or consequence simply defies common sense. This legislation on a tiny subset of criminal events distracts from the real problem. My distinguished colleague has invoked several terrible drunk driving incidents by repeat offenders who are undocumented. They should have been deported from the country long ago. My colleague is talking about people who drunk drive and kill people. That's already a deportable and inadmissible offense. So that's not what the meaning of this legislation is. Let's look at what a tiny slice of criminal events we're talking about and ask whether, in fact, that's something that advances public policy. I don't think it does. Let's work together to impose compulsory ignition interlock devices on the cars of all convicted drunk drivers, including the overwhelming majority who are U.S. citizens, and let's really make the roads safer and stop the repetitive scapegoating of immigrants. We can address DUIs in a serious way here in Congress if we're serious about the issue. That's what I did as a state senator in Maryland. We could do that across the country, Madam Speaker, and I will reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Alabama is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I would like to yield 3 minutes to my good friend from Georgia, Mr. Carter.
Gentleman is recognized.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. Madam Speaker, I rise today in strong support of H.R. 875, the Jeremy and Angel C. and Sergeant Brandon Mendoza Protect Our Communities from DUIs Act of 2025. This piece of legislation is crucial to restoring common sense to our nation's judicial system. Over the past 4 years, the Biden administration has allowed millions of undocumented immigrants to pour into our country. Along with zero oversight and accountability for the crisis, the Biden administration allowed illegal immigrants to stay in the country, even after committing horrible crimes. This piece of legislation would give the courts the ability to deport illegal aliens from America and bar them from reentry if they are convicted of a DUI or a DUI-related charge. This issue hits home for me. In my district, a 15-year-old girl and her grandmother were killed by an illegal alien who was driving drunk. This was a terrible, avoidable tragedy, and sadly, true justice was not served. The assailant only received 15 years per death and will be out to roam free in America by the time he is 67 years old. Madam Speaker, this was in Nahunta, Georgia, in Brantley County, in my district. I met with the grandmother, the other grandmother of this child, who shared with me the grief that this family has gone through since that time. There's no reason at all that this should have happened. There's no reason for the American taxpayer to have to fund the incarceration of this person or any other programs to help him get back on the streets of Georgia. Though my example is the worst outcome possible, illegal aliens should not be able to stay in America with a minor penalty for driving under the influence in the first place. This legislation would close this loophole, and I thank the gentleman for Alabama for doing this, for bringing this forward. It would close that loophole that allows illegal aliens to get off lightly when committing fatal acts such as vehicular manslaughter under the influence. I urge my colleagues to vote in support of this legislation to help bring back common sense to our immigration and legal systems after these 4 years of pure chaos. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I yield back.
Madam Speaker, I reserve.
The gentleman from Alabama reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. The distinguished gentleman from Georgia has just offered us a vivid demonstration of what's wrong with this bill and how the rhetoric supporting it doesn't support the bill. He describes an indescribably tragic, terrible case where an undocumented alien is driving a car and kills people in the gentleman's district. First of all, that person already could be deported just by virtue of being undocumented. Secondly, under current law, having killed someone, he would be immediately deportable. So he was convicted of his offense, sentenced to jail, and he would be deported immediately upon leaving. And in fact, the president could commute his sentence, which is what he's been doing, and have him deported right now. You don't need this bill in order to make that happen. And so that is a demonstration of why this is superfluous legislation. All it does is to say, in a case where, say, nobody is hurt at all, the case of somebody who's asleep in their car in Arizona, for example. There are statutes like that where you don't even have to be in a moving vehicle if you're drunk inside the vehicle. That person, nobody's hurt, there's no property damage. That person could be deported as a permanent resident, even if they've been here for 20 years and their kids are in school, they have nothing else on their record. So that's all this bill is doing, is an opportunity to get up and make speeches about how we're going to get rid of people who kill people in their cars as drunk drivers. That's already the law. And so what I'm saying is if we're going to take the time on the floor to deal with the problem of drunk driving, and again, I take this very seriously because I lost a cousin to drunk driver who's a U.S. citizen, not a non-citizen, and the vast majority of drunk driving incidents occur because of citizens, not because of non-citizens, because the vast majority of the people in the country are here legally as citizens. Well, then let's do a serious thing. Let's say anybody convicted in the country, a U.S. citizen, a permanent resident, or an unlawful person who is somehow still in the country, must have a permanent ignition interlock device put on their car. Now, obviously, the undocumented person's just going to be deported. Fine. Now, what about everybody else? Should convicted drunk drivers be able to just go back out on the road? And this is the fight I had with Republicans in Annapolis when I was a state senator. They were the ones saying, well, that's too harsh a punishment. And I'm saying to them, no, maybe it's painful that you got to go through the ignition interlock device, which says you do the breathalyzer in your car before you can drive again. They say that's painful to have to do that every morning and going back from work. That doesn't compare to the pain of someone who loses a mother, a father, a son, a daughter, a cousin, an uncle, an aunt, or what have you. But if we want to deal with drunk driving, let's seriously deal with drunk driving. And this legislation is not the way to do it. I'm going to yield 5 minutes to the distinguished gentlelady from the state of Washington.
The lady is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in strong opposition to H.R. 875. I, too, take DUIs extremely seriously. According to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, approximately 37 people die in drunk driving incidents every day in the United States. And as the ranking member has just been noting, there are many things that we can and should do to prevent driving under the influence. But also, as the ranking member has pointed out, all of these truly horrifying and tragic stories that we're hearing about from the other side are stories that already render an immigrant deportable right now. If you kill somebody right now, you serve your time and then you are deported. We just had a hearing this morning on how the Trump administration is literally dismissing cases for people who are in a legal process for immigration just so they can deport them. So they can certainly do that for somebody who has been convicted of drunk driving and is serving out their sentence. They could commute that they could take that case and deport that person immediately if they wanted to. Scapegoating immigrants is what this bill does. It scapegoats immigrants by making a single misdemeanor DUI subject to the extremely serious punishment of deportation. It's simply not an appropriate response. The bill also applies to all immigrants, including lawful permanent residents, people who Republican colleagues across the aisle have claimed to like, the ones that they said came here the right way. And it gives no recognition whatsoever to the patchwork of differences and overbroad statutes of what actually constitutes a DUI across the country in different states. It's important to recognize first that serious public safety threats are already deportable offenses. We've been talking about this, but it's important to say it again because, again, the cases that are being brought up are cases where those people are already deportable. Under current immigration law, many serious DUI crimes are considered what is called a crime involving moral turpitude, and therefore already makes someone removable or inadmissible. But this bill does not recognize how widely DUI laws differ across the country and the extremely low bar that is set to receive a DUI conviction in some states. For example, in Arizona, the DUI statute allows people to be charged with a DUI if they're intoxicated and have, quote, physical control of their vehicle. And this issue came to a head in the Ninth Circuit, which, in reviewing an appeal of a removal case for a non-citizen who was charged under this law, found that the physical control language meant that under this statute, and I quote now, one may be convicted under it for sitting in one's own car, in one's own driveway, with the key in the ignition and a bottle of beer in one's hand. While this person in this case had been ordered deported because his conviction under Arizona's law constituted a crime involving moral turpitude, the Ninth Circuit overturned that ruling because the actions covered by the law could not all reasonably be seen as crimes involving moral turpitude. As the court put it, and this is a quote, "Drunken driving is despicable. Having physical control of a car while drinking is not." If this bill had been law at the time, the case would have never reached the Ninth Circuit because no judge would have had the discretion to rule whether this so-called crime merited deportation. This bill would prevent judges from being able to decide if the punishment fits the crime. In my home state of Washington, we have a similar law where someone can be convicted of a misdemeanor DUI without actually driving a vehicle. And while Republicans might wave away our concerns by saying that prosecutors have the discretion to not bring charges under these circumstances, we know about this case precisely because prosecutors chose to file charges and it went to court. This bill does not recognize that under these overbroad DUI statutes, individuals who have made a conscious choice not to drive, they've gone to a party, they've had a couple of beers, they realize they should not be driving, so they go and they sit in their car to sleep it off. Under this bill, those people who have made that conscious choice not to drive impaired may be charged with DUIs simply for sleeping in their car. And so to my Republican colleagues, how many of you have constituents or friends or neighbors who have sat in their cars after leaving the bar to stay warm? We know how cold Midwest winters get. Should we really be criminalizing people for staying warm in their cars and sleeping off a hangover? Under this bill, people would now be subjected to deportation. Now, during markup and at rules, I submitted an amendment.
The gentlelady's time has expired.
I'll yield the gentlelady an additional minute.
Gentlewoman's recognized.
Thank you. Under this bill, during markup and at rules, I submitted an amendment to ensure that immigration judges have the discretion to decide if a DUI conviction actually merits deportation for green card holders and others here lawfully. It would have allowed judges to merely consider mitigating factors, such as if anyone was harmed or the length of time since they were convicted of a DUI. This is a common sense amendment that would have made the bill substantially fairer, but unfortunately, the amendment was rejected. There are members and former members of this body, right here in Congress, who have been arrested and convicted of a DUI, and I would just ask that the charity and the grace that we extend for second chances to people would extend also to those green card holders, including those who have been here for decades. Let's just give a chance for a judge to determine whether their conviction merited deportation, let alone that second chance. This bill does nothing but scapegoat immigrants for so-called DUIs.
Time has expired.
I urge my colleagues to reject the bill.
And I reserve.
The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Alabama is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I yield 3 minutes to my friend from California, Mr. McClintock.
Gentleman's recognized.
Madam Speaker, this bill presents a very simple proposition. Should someone who is a guest in this country, who endangers Americans while driving drunk, be allowed to stay in this country? Republicans say, of course not. And the Democrats say, sure, why not? This ought to be a no-brainer, especially after so many incidents of preventable DUI traffic deaths involving foreign nationals. Mr. Moore and Mr. Carter mentioned a few of the cases of aliens with multiple drunk driving offenses released time and time again and not deported while the butcher's bill steadily grows. Why are such people allowed to remain in our country? Because the Democrats want it that way. In 2020, Joe Biden said that illegal aliens with DUI convictions should be allowed to stay in the United States. He said, quote, "You only arrest for the purpose of dealing with a felony that's committed, and I don't count drunk driving as a felony." When Republicans tried to enact this law in 2021, then Democratic Judiciary Chairman Jerry Nadler opposed any limit to DUI convictions. He said, quote, "Whether someone has 2 or 6 or 10 or 20 convictions of DUI 30 years ago, someone can change. which of course begs the question, how many have to die before they change? Through so many of these debates, the Democrats have consistently supported open borders, sanctuary laws that shield violent criminals, and even modest measures like this one that says we shouldn't have to tolerate guests in this country who recklessly endanger our families. In fact, now they're telling us that in order to stop their riots, we have to stop enforcing our existing immigration laws. Madam Speaker, the American people need to take note of debates like this because none more clearly differentiate the two political parties today. I yield back.
The gentleman from Alabama.
Madam Speaker, we have no more speakers, but I'm going to reserve and yield.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. One can only regard with amazement the high indignation which the previous gentleman speaker just mobilized against the Democrats in Congress. He accuses us of not taking DUI seriously, and nothing he said could provide a more striking contrast between the parties. Well, I'm afraid I have to go there. I was hoping not to have to go there, but I seem to remember when we were met in joint session at what would have been a State of the Union address in this year of 2025. And we left the chamber after several years of, seemed like years, several hours of President Trump's speech. And we got outside, and then a car plowed into the back of a parked police cruiser. And the police descend on the situation. The door opens up. The driver staggers out. It turns out it's the chief of staff to Speaker Mike Johnson, who then is administered the breathalyzer test. And he's got DWI. He's driving while drunk, or maybe it's DUI, driving under the influence in the District of Columbia. And Speaker Johnson immediately says everybody deserves a second chance and we should forgive him. So we didn't make a big deal out of that. We've got a law right now which allows for the deportation and the inadmissibility of anybody who goes out and drives drunk and injures somebody. And if you're here unlawfully, you're kicked out anyway. So we're talking about permanent residence to the country. If you go out and you get in a DUI, you injure somebody, you're deported immediately from the country. So now they talk about all those cases. Those cases are already covered. What we're talking about is cases where, say, somebody's not injured at all. There's no property damage at all, and they want to deport those people even if they've got family, they've been in the country for 15 or 20 years. They don't even want to give any discretion to the judge to decide. So that's what the disagreement is about, this very small matter in a small number of cases where nobody is injured. But if the distinguished gentleman and his colleagues are really interested in doing something about drunk driving in America, let's use this as the occasion to do it. We've got a bill, which is a bipartisan bill, which is called the No DWI Act. And it's been introduced by Mr. Mann, who's from Kansas, Mr. Pappas, who's in my party from New Hampshire, Mr. Smith, who's in their party from New Jersey, and by myself. We're the lead co-sponsors. And what it says is if your state's going to get federal funding for highways, then if somebody is convicted for drunk driving in your state, there must be a compulsory ignition interlock device installed in the car. What does that mean? Well, for a period of time after you've been convicted of drunk driving, you've got to breathe into a breathalyzer machine before your car will start. And some of our colleagues say that's too much, that's too painful for them to go through that. No, it's too painful for us to be losing thousands of people on the streets every year to drunk drivers. So if we're serious about the problem, the gentleman invites us to be serious about it. Let's be serious about it. Let's do what a majority of the states have done. Let's make this a nationwide program. Compulsory ignition interlock device is saving lives across the country. I think in 31 states now and in the District of Columbia. Why don't we do that? Why don't we do something real rather than talk about cases that have nothing to do with the bill, because already if you go out and kill somebody in your car, you're going to be deported from the country, whether you're a lawful permanent resident or you're an undocumented person and you could have been deported anyway. That's already taken care of. So I know that those are the lurid episodes that we want to invoke for this legislation, but that's not what this legislation is about. And in any event, it doesn't do anything to reduce drunk driving in America. Let's reduce drunk driving in America. Could we get behind this bipartisan legislation? I'll reserve.
The gentleman from Maryland reserves. The gentleman from Alabama is recognized.
Madam Speaker, we're prepared to close and reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from Maryland is recognized.
And I have no more speakers, Madam Speaker, so I'm ready to close as well.
The gentleman is recognized.
So, Madam Speaker, forgive my emotion, but drunk driving, for those of us whose families have experienced it, who've lost people on the roads, is a problem of immense magnitude and seriousness. It changes the lives of families all across the country all of the time. And I wish our colleagues on the Judiciary Committee would bring out the NDWI legislation to spread the compulsory ignition interlock device around the country. A majority of states and jurisdictions are using it right now. It's working. It should be nationwide. We can save literally thousands of lives by doing that, because it's a very, very small percentage of the population that engages in the profoundly antisocial act of driving drunk. And those who are undocumented, they're already covered and they're already gone. Those who go out and seriously hurt people or kill people, they're already gone. That's already deportable. That's already inadmissible. So this legislation, in an effort to try to find another way to go out and demonize and vilify immigrants, is now picking on people who are permanent residents of the country, that have been here for decades with their families. They get a DUI, which is a terrible thing regardless, but they get a DUI and nobody's hurt and there's no property damage, and then they just want to deport those people from the country. Okay, so we want to kick those people out of the country, and I presume they've got their votes together. They'll vote for it, and I presume it passes. It doesn't do anything to deal with the problem of drunk driving in America. The vast majority of drunk driving episodes have nothing to do with a permanent resident who drives drunk and doesn't hurt anybody. That's not where we're losing lives. We're losing lives because there's a small percentage of the people who drive drunk repeatedly. The vast majority of them are citizens, and we're not taking that seriously enough. But a lot of states are. In fact, a majority of the states have now imposed the compulsory ignition interlock device on people who've driven drunk and are convicted of it. That's what we should be working on. That's something that will actually effectuate a change and make a difference. Why can't we do that? Why can't we do that? That's all I say to my colleague. I hope that he will join us in this legislation. It's bipartisan, to make the roads in America safer. And with that, I yield my time, and I thank you for your indulgence, Madam Speaker.
The gentleman yields. The gentleman from Alabama is recognized.
Madam Speaker, I want to remind our colleagues that 59 Democrats voted for this legislation last February when I brought it. And we cannot wait until an illegal driving drunk kills a family member, a member of our community. Time and time again, Mothers Against Drunk Driving says on a DUI, normally it's 80 times they've been arrested for DUI before they're actually caught. No, they drive drunk 80 times before they're caught. Statistics show that at least a dozen times people drive drunk before they're caught. So that's why we saw in Florida the third time an illegal had a DUI was when he had killed a kindergartner. The fifth time in Colorado, the judge released him 4 days before the illegal killed a mother and her 16-year-old son. I had a judge, a friend of mine, who texted me the other night and thanked me for this piece of legislation. He's no longer on the bench. But he said in the last administration, he knew in the courtroom, when that illegal got the DUI and he turned them over to ICE, they went out, they got in a white van, they drove off and did not retain them. Time and time again, our communities are suffering because we are not taking these people and holding them account and getting them out of this country. So I'd encourage my colleagues to get behind this legislation. Americans look to Congress for solutions to real problems. Despite what my colleagues on the other side have argued today, drunk driving by aliens is an issue in this country that must be addressed. This bill does so. Making guests in our country inadmissible to and removable from the United States because they've endangered our communities by driving drunk is just plain common sense. The Jeremy and Angel C. and Sergeant Brandon Mendoza Protect Our Communities from DUIs Act of 2025 is straightforward, and I urge my colleagues to support it. And with that, Madam Speaker or Mr. Speaker, I yield back.
The gentleman yields back. The question is on passage of the bill. For debate has expired. Pursuant to House Resolution 530, the previous question is ordered on the bill as amended. The question is on engrossment and third reading of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those opposed say no. The ayes have it. Third reading.
A bill to amend Immigration and Nationality Act to provide that aliens who have been convicted of or who have committed an offense for driving while intoxicated or impaired are inadmissible and deportable.
The question is on passage of the bill. Those in favor say aye. Those in favor say no. The ayes have it. The bill is passed, and without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid on the table.
Call for the ayes and nays.
The yeas and nays are requested.
Okay.
Those favoring a vote by the yeas and nays will rise. A sufficient number having risen, the yeas and nays are ordered. Pursuant to Clause 8 of Rule 20, further proceedings on this question will be postponed. For what purpose does the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Green, seek recognition?
Mr. Speaker, pursuant to House Resolution 530, I call up H.R. 275 and ask for its immediate consideration in the House.
The clerk will report the title of the bill.
Union Calendar Number 130, H.R. 275, a bill to require the Secretary of Homeland Security to publish on a monthly basis the number of special interest aliens encountered attempting to unlawfully enter the United States and for other purposes.
Pursuant to House Resolution 530, the amendment in the nature of a substitute recommended by the Committee on Homeland Security, printed in the bill, is adopted, and the bill, as amended, is considered read. The bill, as amended, shall be debatable for 1 hour, equally divided and controlled by the chair and ranking minority member of the Committee on Homeland Security or their respective designees. The gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Green, and the gentleman from California, Mr. Correa, each will control 30 minutes. The chair recognizes the gentleman from Tennessee, Mr. Green.
Mr. Speaker, I ask unanimous consent that all members have 5 legislative days in which to revise and extend their remarks and to include extraneous material on H.R. 275.
Without objection.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I rise in strong support of H.R. 275, the Special Interest Alien Reporting Act of 2025. This legislation is a critical step toward enhancing transparency and ensuring the Department of Homeland Security provides accurate and timely reporting to the American people regarding encounters with special interest aliens attempting to illegally enter the United States. As chairman of the Committee on Homeland Security, I fully support this effort to strengthen oversight and accountability within DHS and safeguard our national security. Under the Biden-Harris administration's dangerous open borders policy, droves of special interest aliens, nearly 2 million, and many of them leveraging illicit smuggling networks and irregular migration patterns, flocked to our borders and exploited catch and release policies to access the interior of our country. The American people deserve to know not just how many entered our country and when, but where they came from. Fundamentally, this bill simply requires DHS to publicly report on how many special interest aliens were encountered, their country of origin, and their last country of residence before trying to enter the United States illegally. The genius of this bill is that DHS can simply add it to the statistics it already reports on a monthly basis. This avoids any burdensome or duplicative reporting requirements for the department. Also, by simply reporting the number and nationality of SIA encounters at our borders, it has no impact on the integrity of ongoing anti-terrorism investigations and efforts of federal law enforcement. Moreover, access to accurate information is critical for Congress to effectively conduct proper oversight, promote national security measures, and protect our American communities from the threats that special interest aliens pose. I simply cannot overstate the importance of passing this legislation, especially given the recent activity in the Middle East. I'm proud to be an original co-sponsor of this bill, and I'm grateful for the gentlewoman from Georgia, Ms. Green, for bringing forth this important piece of legislation and for the support of following co-sponsors, Mr. Higgins, Mr. Guest, Mr. Pfluger, Mr. Crane, and Mr. Burkeen. Thank you, and I reserve the balance of my time.
The gentleman reserves. The gentleman from California is recognized.
Speaker, I yield myself such time as I may consume.
The gentleman is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, this bill is not good for the national security. That's plain and simple. This bill would require Customs and Border Protection to publish sensitive, detailed national security information on a monthly basis. And this information would give the bad guys around the world real-time updates on what DHS operations and targeting are on a real-time basis. Let's be clear. A special interest alien, an SIA, does not mean someone who's a terrorist. It just means that someone's travel patterns indicate a need for further scrutiny. It means they need more detailed questioning to determine what is going on. During markup and during Rules Committee, we heard from my Republican colleagues how the department already publishes information about known and suspected terrorists. That is true. But this bill demands that DHS post far more detailed information about special interest aliens than DHS publishes about known suspected terrorists. Today, DHS publishes suspected terrorist information on a monthly basis, broken down by Border Patrol and ports of entry. No other data is published. Here, my colleague from Georgia wants DHS to publish more information about special interest aliens than they publish about suspected terrorists. For special interest aliens, she also wants information published in real time about where they're from and where they're encountered. If Ms. Green's bill were to mirror what we report on suspected terrorists, I would be happy to support it. But that's simply not the case here. By publishing this information in real time, the bad actors would be able to tell who's getting advanced screening from CBP. They will also be able to tell which locations have been the most successful in interdicting those migrants that need enhanced screening. Bad actors will adjust their operations in response and try to avoid extra screening, which will only hurt our national security. And please note, DHS has never publicly released these numbers on a real-time basis because these numbers are essentially sensitive data we don't want to be made public. And as the chair just stated, DHS already has the ability to publish these numbers if they were to choose to make these numbers public. So, Mr. Speaker, if it's safe to do, why isn't DHS already doing it? I'd say, Mr. Speaker, let the professionals, let the security professionals decide what to publish and when. That's their job, not ours. Ours is to legislate. They have the ability to make these decisions now. Let them make these decisions. I ask my colleagues to let the Secretary, again, make the decisions, publish the information they deem safe and correct. I reserve the balance of my time.
Member reserves. The member from Tennessee is recognized.
Mr. Speaker, I yield five minutes to the gentlewoman from Georgia, the author of this piece of legislation.
Member from Georgia is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today to speak in favor of my bill, the Special Interest Alien Reporting Act of 2025, an essential piece of border security transparency legislation. A special interest alien, or SIA, is a non-U.S. person who, based on a DHS analysis of travel patterns, may pose a national security risk to the United States or its interests. My bill would require the Department of Homeland Security to publicly release monthly reports on the number of special interest aliens encountered at our borders, their countries of origin, and where they were encountered. This bill would be retroactive to January 20th, 2021, so that we can get a better sense of the catastrophic national security impacts of the Biden-Harris administration's open border policies. And I would like to say that's likely why Democrats are fighting this bill so hard. DHS publicly reports detailed information on encounters and seizures, including CBP encounters of individuals on the terrorist screening data set, better known as the terrorist watch list, which is an even more targeted and specific number than the number of SIAs. But missing from the DHS reporting is information on SIA encounters. Instead, Congress and the American people have been left only with random, incomplete announcements periodically released by DHS officials or through leaks to the media. Similar to the information released on the terrorist screening data set, my bill would require DHS to report general encounter information on special interest aliens and would not include any personal identifiable information. No matter how many times my Democrat colleagues say it, there is no personal information released. In fact, senior DHS officials, like the former Border Patrol chief, have occasionally put out some of these numbers on social media and elsewhere. Public reporting of SIAs will increase the transparency and accountability that are critical to the health of our constitutional republic. Congress has the authority and responsibility to provide transparency to the American people, which is exactly what my bill does. And I would argue the American people pay our paychecks, so they deserve to know the truth. The Biden-Harris administration's disastrous policies place the United States in an extremely vulnerable national security position. Under Biden and Harris, our sovereign borders became revolving doors for illegal aliens, including an untold number of murderers, rapists, and potential terrorists who hate our country and want to cause harm to our people. Over the past 4 years, CBP faced an unprecedented number of special interest aliens from the 26 countries that the Department of Homeland Security has determined pose the greatest national security and counterintelligence threat. These included individuals from adversarial nations, including the People's Republic of China, Iran, Afghanistan, and Syria. The Biden-Harris administration's intentional disregard for our laws and breakdown of national security resulted in U.S. Customs and Border Protection encountering over 1.7 million special interest aliens. Many of these individuals were swiftly processed and released into the interior under the Biden-Harris administration's catch and release policies. The American people deserve to know who our government is encountering at the border and where they came from while they are attempting to invade our country illegally. Given the ongoing events in the Middle East, this legislation is essential for Congress to conduct congressional oversight over special interest aliens encountered invading our borders. During the Biden-Harris administration, the Border Patrol apprehended over 1,500 Iranian nationals illegally crossing the southwest border between ports of entry. Of those, Biden and Harris admitted 729, almost half, and we don't know where they are now, and we don't know what they may do. With Iran threatening Americans with retaliatory strikes on our homeland, President Biden and border czar Kamala Harris created an opportunity for our adversaries to gain access to our nation and wreak havoc when called upon. I'm proud that the Trump administration supports this important piece of legislation, and I urge my colleagues on both sides of the aisle to please support to increase in transparency and accountability within our government. Thank you, and I yield back.
The member from Tennessee reserves. The member from California is recognized.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, this legislation simply puts our national security at risk by forcing DHS to hand over parts of its playbook on how it stops potential actors from entering the United States. It's all going to make us less safe. This bill would require Customs and Border Protection to publish sensitive national security information on a monthly, real-time basis. We're not talking about personal identifiable information, despite the author's claim. We're talking about releasing who CBP is looking for, targeting, and where those advanced interviews are actually happening in real time. This essentially gives the bad people the opportunity to coordinate, triangulate, and take advantage of the situation. Essentially, to know what our playbook is. We all support transparency and accountability at DHS. That's our job here in Congress, but not at the expense of tipping off terrorist or criminal organizations as to what our playbook is. And Mr. Speaker, I yield as much time as he may consume to the gentleman from Mississippi, Mr. Thompson, the ranking member of the Committee on Homeland Security.
The member from Mississippi is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I thank the gentleman from California, Mr. Correa, for yielding and his leadership on the Border Security and Enforcement Subcommittee of the Committee on Homeland Security. Mr. Speaker, the Department of Homeland Security already vets everyone it encounters entering the United States. Most of these encounters are routine, but some of these encounters require more investigation based on a dynamic assessment of the security situation. Now, DHS does not publicly release who it's getting enhanced screening or where it may be happening right now, simply because, first, merely being singled out for enhanced screening does not necessarily mean an individual poses a threat or has done something illegal, and second, does so